We have a huge surprise for you all. No, we knew it was you. That's how this film got into TIFF.
Thank you for waiting. So, I'd like to ask you, Erin. Your films often center around the personal lives of celebrities whose lives are affected by their popularity, but how do you gain their trust while getting close to them, while maintaining respect for their privacy?
You gotta know Jenny Ellisky. I think that Jenny and I worked on Britney versus Spears together, and Jenny is an incredible music journalist and has some of the most long-standing relationships inside the music industry. And so I was lucky enough that Jenny introduced us, and then of course you had to decide, Tegan and Sara, if you felt like I was the right person, but I like to look people in the eyes and say, I will follow this story, I will do whatever it takes, this is my life's work, and I don't want to be a pick-me girl, but pick me.
So the core of this story started about a decade ago, but it still feels very, very fresh. So why do you think themes about cybersecurity and catfishing are still relevant today, despite the efforts to enhance users' privacy and security?
Jenny, I feel like that's your specialty. You should answer that one.
I think it's interesting that as people have been able to be more verified of their identity, that it's become even more confusing. I mean, before AI, before deep fakes, anything like that, the initial period of time that this was happening, as we say in the film, it's message boards, there was no check mark. You really could believe, how were you supposed to decipher a fake profile from a real profile? You could just think, yeah, that's their Finsta, the pre-Finsta, or whatever, how were you supposed to know? And as a fan, you would assume that you had the knowledge to decipher, and who could blame you? It is crazy that now that there are, in a post-blue checkmark world, or we're now there and gone and there again, we all see this in our Instagram feeds every day, a famous person having to tell us to be careful because there's some profile out there pretending to be them asking for money. And this con is being perpetuated all the time, and I think it's because now more than ever we are so voracious for a connection to the people we admire, because social media gave us this illusion of it being not just a one-way mirror or something like, you know what I mean? That we feel like we can see them, they must be able to see us. If they liked our comment, why wouldn't they maybe message us? And it makes everyone very confused about what the real interaction is.
Tegan and Sara, you really embraced the internet, and you used it as a way to, reach out to your fans, and you created a safe space for them in this kind of reaching out. But with all that's happened, I know that it's changed the way that you interact with people, but do you ever think you will get to that place again where you embrace the internet in the same way? And then what are your feelings about that change?
No, probably not. Sarah never liked the internet and has been trying to convince us to get rid of everything since about
Even before Fegan, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
I was always like, just
Sarah
a
thought
nightmare.
that Sarah always sort of sniffed out that this was probably a slippery slope with a terrible ending. So I think it's important for me that it doesn't feel like we are calling out fandoms in general or our fandom. I think the vast majority of people on this planet are kind and good, and their curiosity probably lives within the realm of healthiness. But I do think that every artist hits a peak, and the peak of our career happened during this time, and it fanned the fires, and it made us very nervous about how to connect online and very mistrusting. But I don't think that fake Tegan is responsible entirely for that. I also just think it's deeply fatiguing, and we're seeing that in this new crop of artists that are coming out, and they're burning out within a year. We have way too high of expectations on ourselves and on celebrities and public figures. no one cares to hear how hard it is to do whatever job, fill in the blank, but being a musician is hard, it's exhausting. You spend hundreds of days on the road, alone, away from your family and friends, and most of the things that you have to do to take care of yourself, mental health, physical health, and security, is on you to pay for. We don't have health care, we don't have benefits, we have to pay for our own security, etc. So artists are becoming afraid, and they're becoming overwhelmed, and they're becoming fatigued. So I don't think that's one person's fault. I think it's a systemic problem of our industry and of the greater internet and world. And so I hope what people take away from this film, I certainly think I tried to lead with this, and Erin and Jenny and the whole team were like this too, is just have compassion for not just the victims, but even fake Tegan. I feel bad that this happened. I feel like the internet's scary. You should need to like apply for a license to use it, you know? And so all these people were really young, including fake Tegan. And
Fake Tegans.
yeah, we all have different theories about, but they were young, we were young, the internet was young. And I think that, I think it's just important to have compassion for each other. Have compassion when we say, I've had enough, it's too much, no, I can't take a selfie, no, I don't, you know, I can't stand here and talk to you at 2 in the morning outside the venue. You know, I think we should just all have more compassion for each other.
Even though it seems like the bulk of people and the bulk of fans are respectful, it really just does take one or two to feel like we can't have nice things anymore.
That should have been the title. We can't have nice things like Tegan and Sara anymore.
I do think there's something interesting about, like, it really took this really complicated web to get Tegan to come around on this, because I didn't have to, it didn't take me, like, it was a very small number of things where I was like, oh, I don't like this. Like, you know, in my own personal experience with the music industry, I didn't want my self-worth and my self-esteem to be attached to message boards. Like, at first I really liked it, but I was so undone by bad press. I was so undone by fan comments. I was so destabilized by that, and that's because I'm insecure, you know, I admit that. And it was so healthy for me to get off the internet. It was so healthy for me to get away from, you know, what was a lot of praise, but sometimes just also a lot of criticism. And I just find it amazing that Tegan had she like existed, but she had so much more stamina and like threshold for this than I did. Because if I had ever got whiff that somebody was like, if there was a fake Sara, which doesn't work as well as fake Tegan, Fegan, Farah, I would probably like I would be like working at Whole Foods or something. Like I would have just been like, peace.
Farah's a real name, so that's just
Farah is a real name. That doesn't sound as scary or villainous as Fegan.
Before I turn it over to the audience, I do want to ask, when you do these type of investigative documentaries and information's coming in as you go, like you're putting things together as you're investigating, what does this mean for the editing and kind of the structure of the documentary? Because we never find out, there's no real closure. There are theories, but we never get a who did it.
Closure. Well, everybody should know that documentary is made by the editor. Can my editor, Tim K. Smith, stand up? The only man to work on the film. I think that it's you know, basically it's horrifying, and because you're like, am I going to get the story? Is this evidence going to happen? And it just makes it all the much more complicated, but that much more thrilling, right? And it's just like, we were all on a journey together to find out who this was. We got close. I still have some suspicions. But I think that it really, what was important to Tegan and I, because we unearthed evidence we hired a former FBI agent to sort of check my work, and he was like, this is this, but also it could be this person. And so we really at the end of the film, even there was clear and convincing circumstantial evidence to suggest that it was this person, but really what we came to understand is that Tara, and I'm sorry for all the quotation marks, really did a lot of troubling things, but potentially as Tara. And it's not just fake Tegan doing these terrible things. So investigations, good for movies, bad for mental health, but here we are.
I want to turn it over to you. I'm sure you have questions about this topic. If we can maybe bring the lights up a tiny bit. Yeah, in the front.
So a little bit of a two-part question, but there was an instance with your Substack where it wasn't verified. They answered like a bunch of questions, including one of my questions with Comic-Con, and then like it was all gone, and then the verified account, and people were kind of like, was that like a mistake? I was kind of curious about that.
Thank you so much for bringing up the dumbest thing I did this year so far. So the question was, we have a Substack called I Think We're Alone Now, and the question was that someone had gone in and answered all the fan comments on a post, and then they disappeared, and then they came back as verified, and that's because somebody should take away my computer and my telephone. This doesn't happen to just anybody, you guys. This happens to somebody who is a moron. There's a pattern. There's a pattern here, and we're working on it. It's hard to be a duo, okay? Sometimes I get kicked out of the Substack account and I don't even know I've been kicked out of it, and then I come up as an unverified person. But you bring up a really interesting point that I'm going to make into a more interesting answer, which is, do we live with paranoia, and is there an icky residue on us because of the fake Tegan situation all these years later? Yes. Every single day, pretty much, it comes
Just
up.
last week, in fact, a bunch of us in our management, work world, including also me, got an email from my wife requesting access to a Google Calendar that has all of our travel and, whatever details. And I was like, my blood ran cold, and she was at work in New York, and I was messaging her, and she was like, please leave me alone, I have a job. And I was like, Fegan's in your email, you have to change your passwords. And within about 15 minutes, we figured out it was a Google glitch. But yes, it's so sticky in our life that anytime anything happens.
Also,
like,
I should be
this Air Canada strike, Fegan.
Maybe
She is keeping us here.
No, but I also just want to say too, my number is on the internet. I get crank calls all the time.
Change your number, Tegan.
No.
Jesus Christ.
You're not irrelevant. No, just change your number. I can't even figure out how to comment on Substack. Can you imagine I had a new phone number? How would I lose touch with all the people in my life? No, but I'm bringing it up in the sense that just happened 2 weeks ago. Someone called me at 2 in the morning and laughed hysterically and at me, and we laughed, but it's scary. It's violating. It's annoying. Sometimes there's a spectrum. It's just annoying and inconvenient. And other times it's been extremely upsetting for our family and friends. And sometimes it's just right in the middle, moronic, like the Substack thing. But yeah, fake Tegan, definitely there's remnants. And this is for all the victims, by the way. Their stories to Erin and Jenny were all like this. They're all paranoid. They all have those feelings. Yeah, it's just terrible. So I'm sorry I did that to you guys. Bad timing, because it was literally the week that the Fanatical announcement came out.
Yeah.
You know what it was actually? It was a promo and marketing idea from Hulu. Went pretty well. Fake Tegan running our Substack, bitch.
Moving on. Someone in the balcony right there. No question anymore? Okay. Right there. Yes. And
Oh, me? Okay.
yes.
Do you think the rise of AI and other emerging technologies will get other fan bases more aware of, okay, that's an impersonation account, this is the real person? Do you think that will, or what happens?
So do you think the rise of AI will get people more aware of, okay, this is an impersonation account, this is the real thing?
More wary of, okay, that's genuine, that the pictures are genuine, the photo, I meant the description's genuine, and others.
Well, I think it's going to make it so much worse. Hopefully it'll do good things like that, but, when we were talking to somebody we thought was fake Tegan, they wouldn't accept a call from Tegan. They needed a video to verify that it was actually Tegan, even though they were potentially fake Tegan, but they were saying it could be AI. And I was like, oh God, no, just it's Tegan. You're not Tegan. Let's get
I'm
it
surprised
together.
there's not gonna put more videos of me. How many videos do I have to make where I'm like, hi, it's real Tegan. I'm so sorry this happened to you. But I agree, I don't think AI is gonna make it better, or probably make it worse, because I think we're on a paranoia slip and slide, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I also think it's just like people want to believe it. That's the thing. It's just that the stronger our desire to believe that you just really wish it was this person talking to you. If it's someone you don't care, if it's a fake prince of wherever, and you're just like, that's not you. But if it's your favorite actor, your favorite tattoo artist, your favorite artist, you really want it to be them, and so you'll go down. You're like, but what if it's them? You don't want to miss your shot.
multiple victims did say that to us. Like I remember in a couple of the interviews, Erin said, like, were you ever suspicious this wasn't Tegan? And they all admitted that at times they had felt uncomfortable or paranoid or didn't believe it, and they ignored their instincts. So if there's one takeaway from the film, it's listen to your gut. Like, don't ignore
Just
those
like you.
signs. Yeah, next time you're having a relationship with someone for up to 5 years where you've never laid eyes on them, listen to your gut. Especially if it's someone like me. Have you guys been following along? I'm very codependent. If I was dating you, I'd be there tomorrow.
We have time for one last question. Right there. You, yes. So some of the people are still very deeply impacted by what happened. How did you get these people to be in the film and trust you?
I think it takes a lot of conversation, and I was very clear that it is not at all my purpose to embarrass anybody, because there's a cultural understanding that people are catfished or quote unquote dumb. But me doing this and being in this for so long, this was an incredibly complex and real portrait of somebody. And so I said, this is where you'll be validated in your experience, that this felt really real. And I think the people that we were lucky enough to meet, there was this fake Tegan is still doing this to this very day, up and we have reason to believe. And I said, us making this film will hopefully stop the bleed. And so it was, one, making sure they understood our intentions, our values, what it was gonna look like. Two, they really wanted to do right by real Tegan. They kept saying that over and over and over, like, I feel so bad for you. And then Tegan would be like, I feel so bad for you. And then it would happen for 5 minutes. And I was like, guys, let's go. But then we were lucky that, it was also people that wanted to help. And then there's people like JT, where it was such an emotionally wrenching situation. And, it's really painful, right? And so I think it's all of these things, but I'm proud to show this film to the people that were in it, because I think they're respected and they're reflected.
I do want to get one more question, because this person's been raising their hand for quite a while. Right there, yes.
Perseverance.
Yes.
Don't worry about her. Just waiting for that full steam ahead moment to come.
What was the pivotal moment for you to decide that you were going to open up and go full steam ahead with this story?
Well, it's kind of a dumb answer. I just listened to this great podcast 2 years ago called Sweet Bobby. And it's a great catfish story, but there's a twist. I will not ruin it for you. But it kind of unlocked a lot of memories about fake Tegan I hadn't thought about in a while. Like, fake Tegan comes up in the business world, that world, but I hadn't, there's just this other stuff that started to come up. And very briefly, it's just to say that, back when this first happened, we thought we'd found fake Tegan. We thought Joanne was fake Tegan, and we talked to Joanne multiple times. And then this whole Mark thing happened, we sent the cease and desist, and we were like, all right, we're moving on. And then when the second wave happened, it was worse. It was people, there was about a dozen people I knew through my email that had been hacked. We were able to confirm with Yahoo that someone had been in my account impersonating me, and JT came forward and we found out it was like romantic, and it just sickened me, and we thought that it potentially was a second person, and we thought it was someone that I knew. And so when I heard the Sweet Bobby podcast, and now I'm kind of gonna give it away because now I'm realizing I've backed myself into a corner here, but the twist is that the person knows the person catfishing them. And so it unlocked this fear in me that we had given up too easily, and that fake Tegan was someone I knew.
It also hasn't stopped happening, you know,
Exactly.
Yeah, like we, especially at public events, you know, there have been times over the last few years where it's like, there's a very specific look that someone gets on their face, and they approach us, and we know. They don't say anything, we already know.
I was just like, I felt like that moment, like where it unlocked this feeling again where I was like, is it possible that there's a person out there that I know that's doing this to people? Did we give up too easily? So anyway, I sat down and wrote a story called Fake Tegan, and that was sort of the end of the story, was me saying, like, did we not try hard enough to verify if there was a second person? Was it someone I knew? Was the first person that we found the person, and they tricked us into thinking it wasn't them? Like, I just had so many questions, and I don't think I even thought about if I was ready to tell the story or not. I just decided I wanted to start to write it down and think about it, and then that was when I approached Jenny, and Jenny suggested we take it to Erin. And I think that once I had met with them and met the team at Story Syndicate, I became more confident that they had the compassion and empathy and knowledge to handle this with care. Because the most important thing to Sara and I always is that we respect our audience, because I don't believe we'll ever get respect back if we don't respect you first. And so there was a trust that we felt, even all these years later, with our audience, that if we were going to tell a story like this about people who were violated in our world, that we needed to do it completely and openly. Like, I couldn't just hand this story over. Like, Erin was incredibly generous and let me be front seat for so much of the process, and everybody was so respectful of making sure that I felt comfortable with what was getting put in the film. You know, even Tara or JT, like anyone who was angry or had done things that hurt me all those years later, I wanted to make sure that they didn't get hurt by the film. Like, I wanted them to have their say. If they're fucking angry and they're mad and they think that I should have done better, then say that. That's okay. Because maybe I could have done more, but maybe not. Like, but we all got to say that, and it felt really important for us as victims of this person to take the front seat. Fuck fake Tegan. Let everybody have their say and talk about what this did to them. So I lost consciousness there for a few minutes, so I'm not sure if I got back to it, but thanks for your question.
Tegan and Sara, you've been sharing so much of yourselves through your music for so many years, and I just want to thank
stop.
you for opening. We can't have nice things, the sequel, the intervention, but thank you for continuing to share, and Jenny and Erin, thank you for helping share this story as well.
Thank you for coming.